I don't know anything anymore, man. Fairy Tail is getting as chaotic as ever with twists and turns and emotional roller coasters, and I don't know who is beating who currently, who is the villain, who's absorbing who, whose powers are what. I'm gonna get whiplash. What's happening to the continent of Giltina? What's gonna go on with the Calamity Bloods? What's Team Natsu doing? What is Natsu going to do? What's happening to Ignia or Faris? And honestly, I don't really know how to feel about this latest chapter because after everything that's going on, it feels like we're just running in circles at this point and really just being left with even more questions without many of them from the previous one having been answered. We're clearly in the endgame, so it will be interesting to see what Mashima ends up cooking up for who the final boss will be, what kind of alliances are going to come into place, what Diabolos is doing, what Lucy's going to do with Mercphobia's key, all of this other stuff on top of the questions we were left with last chapter. But before we start talking about all that, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay up to date if you're enjoying the content. Chances are, if you like one of my videos, you will like all of my videos. We talk about anime and manga here, we love anime and manga here, and we love talking about how much we love anime and manga here. So without further ado, let's get to reviewing. So for a bit of a recap, the main focus of the previous fight was on the three-way battle between Natsu, Ignia, and Faris, while Team B of Fairy Tail, as well as the Eurasian 6, were trying to escape the falling debris of Alderaan after their completed battle with the Eurasian 6. For the most part, a very chaotic battle, with Natsu and Ignia kind of just trading blows while Faris was off to the side, supposedly either losing her mind or slowly getting taken over by the will of Acnologia. That's when, after calling out Eternal Flare, Ignia, surviving the attack, decides to turn into his dragon form and eat Faris. But when we thought it was all over, Faris from inside Ignia's body tells him that he's being a fool and decides to absorb him from the inside out, saying she would take his body. And this in particular was very terrifying, since with the power of Acnologia now attached onto a dragon god, who knows what kind of calamities could occur as a result of this. We never saw the full-on transformation, but we knew that something was happening to Ignia from the inside. And off to the side, we had Alderaan in his dying moments after his battle with Selene, taking spite on Ignia and deciding he was going to destroy the entire continent of Giltina, turning everything into dragons. Which for one I think is really interesting because Ignia's whole goal is turning everything into dragons, so if Alderaan is mad at Ignia, why is he just basically accomplishing Ignia's goal for him? Maybe there's something more to it that we just haven't really figured out yet, but for right now it just feels like he's turning everything into dragons. But either way, that's where the previous chapter left off, and we now start chapter 204 titled The Head of the Dragons. And honestly, this chapter felt very slow because the entire first half of it focuses on everybody's individual reaction to what Alderaan is doing to the continent. It almost feels like I'm watching an episode of One Piece where it pans to every different character's reaction after somebody does something. And while it's cool to see everyone, I don't really know why we couldn't have just had different panels on a page. Alderaan also goes on to say, "Meet your destruction, all life in this world." Which is interesting because he really just had control over the continent of Giltina, so is this just going to become an entire planetary attack in some way? Can he spread his roots across the other continents in the world? We see Natsu at first thinking the massive rumbling and roaring is coming from what's happening with Ignia and Faris, but then realizing it's actually coming from the planet itself, as Alderaan is clearly creating destruction. We see Happy and Fortune go flying as well as a result of this, while the ground is shaking so badly that Lucy, Wendy, Gray, Urza, and Loxus are all losing their balance. And what I'd previously described as dragon-shaped magic in the previous chapter actually turns out to be the ground itself taking the form of several dragons rising into the air to the surprise of everybody else. We see Gajiel and Midnight surprise as well, and what I find really interesting is we're actually seeing dragon scales come out of the ground, so I'm not sure if the dragification process can actually be applied to inanimate objects, though technically the earth is living. Is it just a spell that can turn literally anything into a dragon? Because if so, once again, Alderaan is literally helping Ignia achieve his goal. In fact, probably to an even greater extent, because Ignia's whole thing was turning all humans into dragons, but Alderaan is turning the planet itself and all living things on the planet, including plants, into dragons. This goes significantly further beyond Ignia's original scope. And despite the fact that Alderaan did all of this in an attempt to spite Ignia, this is honestly just creating a haven for him more than anything. And as I said earlier, with the chapter just panning to everybody's different reactions, we now see Cobra and Racer, along with Juvia, Melody, Elfman, Mirajane, and once again Loxus, Urza, and Mother Glare. But what's interesting to note here is Mirajane saying, "What's going on? It's like the ground's alive." Which once again solidifies the theory that Alderaan really is just turning the earth itself into a sentient dragon. How is that even possible? Well, I'm hoping we get this explained further in some way later on. In this next page though, we see Lucy and Gray also being separated by dragons, but what's interesting here is it looks like there's dragons coming out of the ground as opposed to dragons being formed out of the ground itself. It's almost like they're erupting like geysers. The most insane part of it all, however, is Selene saying that she has never seen magic like this before, meaning Alderaan has hidden this trump card from everybody, if even the dragon gods are not aware. But we do now focus on the main event, which is what the heck is going on with Ignia and Faris, as well as Natsu right next to them. We get a look at the black magic sphere enveloping Ignia's body, with Faris saying, "I'll take your power and your body. I am Acnologia. I have the power to consume magic." So we once again have her calling herself Acnologia, and this really begs the question, does Faris even really have a will of her own? Like, what does Faris want for herself? What does she want for the world? For all we know, this entire time, she has been going on and on and on about how she is the will of Acnologia. She's the embodiment of Acnologia. Everything she does is for Acnologia. And as the black magic is continuing to consume Ignia's spirit body, she says, "I'll burn up the earth for you. People, dragons, animals, I'll destroy them all." And man, she looks genuinely really happy about this. Like, I've not seen a grin like that in a while. This is not even a sinister smile. This is true, genuine joy. But also smiling is Ignia, saying, "Maybe we were destined to meet, to attain the black dragon my dad couldn't. Yeah, let's destroy everything." And while we see Faris surprised that Ignia is even still capable of moving, this now begs the question, is the will of Acnologia taking over Ignia as well? Because his initial goal was to turn everything into dragons, but now he's saying that he wants to destroy everything, similar to what Faris' original goal was. In a sense, it almost feels like their minds are becoming linked. Now this is the part where it gets really confusing, because Ignia turns around and begins to burn Faris' body. To which, despite being surprised he could still move, she simply smiles and says, "This is nothing." Ignia going, "Don't look so happy, I'll take you with me." As we see Faris' body now fully enveloped in flames. The dark sphere shatters from the outside, and we now see a voice saying, "Universe Omega is complete, everything will become dragons." And the one walking out of the smoke is Ignia, saying, "And I will stand at the head of the dragons." Oh my god, look, it's the title of the chapter. We then see Natsu very surprised as Ignia announces, "I've become the Black Flame Dragon," and that's where the chapter ends. And listen, if you saw my previous video, you knew I was adamant that Ignia could not be the final villain. But what's really confusing to me here is how Faris kind of just showed up so late into the story, and if she's just gone like that now, I feel like it would be such a disservice to her character, and honestly just a disservice to Acnologia's legacy. This guy was the theme of absolute power in the universe of Fairy Tail, even standing above the 5 dragon gods themselves. To have his legacy squashed so quickly like that, I think would just not make sense. It would be extremely disingenuous. But also, Ignia, after having been built up for the entire story, being defeated that quickly, also wouldn't have made much sense. It very much would have been a disservice to his character. But now, despite Ignia being the one walking out of the smoke at the end, could it be a possibility that this is still Faris somehow in control? I mean, she did say she would take his body. Though we did see Ignia's flames envelop her, but at the same time, Ignia does not have the power to consume magic or steal it, outside of obviously fire magic. This takeover can only really be the result of Faris' abilities. So maybe we're in a situation here where this is a dual personality, both Ignia and Faris are somehow in control? I mean, we saw their wills almost combining towards the end there, with even Ignia saying that he would destroy everything. And once again, I don't think it would have actually made any sense to introduce Faris so late into the story, only to have her erased this quickly. Because for all intents and purposes, this would just make her a plot device with no real reason for existing in the first place, other than to power up Ignia, and I don't think Mashima is the type of person to pull some kind of lazy written story like that. In fact, it would be more than lazy, it would just be straight up objectively bad. I will say though, whatever ends up happening, this design looks sick. I mean, look at the pattern on Ignia's left arm and the black tips on his hair. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm still a bit skeptical, and the sad truth is we didn't have a lot of questions answered this chapter. Because I feel like most of what we were shown could have definitely just been condensed into nearly half the length. But I am hoping that 205 gives us more insight onto what the true relationship between Ignia and Faris' new form is, who's really in control, whose powers are taking over, and just in general what this truly means for this final battle. But really, I mean, I tried to look at as much as I could for this chapter, and overall, It was alright. Definitely not the most satisfying, but the story is working itself forward. So I'll definitely give it another chapter to kind of just try to answer 2 of the major questions we have at least. But until then, if you enjoyed this, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay up to date because we love anime and manga here, we love talking about anime and manga here, and we love talking about how much we love anime and manga here. The goal for now is to upload at least 1 video a week, and I don't only talk about fairy tales, so if you like one video, chances are you probably will like my others because I use the same style. But I am trying to move away from just scripting the whole thing and talking more off the dome with bullets, so we'll see how I get better at that. Till then, I got some homework to do, so I will catch y'all in the next one, and I hope you have a blessed day. Peace.